All right, Yield Nerds, we are on to episode 86. And I want to play some relaxing music here because the theme of this episode is to T-bill and chill. You probably got the rest of the episode and you can tune out and save a lot of minutes. But let's dive a little bit deeper because there are some surprises as well for today. Well, first of all, thank you for new subscribers. I also realized that YieldNerd is now officially 1 year old. Thank you. And any of you joining here in the middle of episode 86, consider using the roadmap. The roadmap starts from a novice to fixed income and walks them all the way through here. My usual disclaimers: this is not investment or tax advice. These are merely my opinions. I am not a wealth management investor, or I'm not some magic stock trader. I just started learning about investing and I'm sharing my education with you. I'm not sponsored and I do not have any product to sell as well. All right, I organized today in the following manner. First is a little bit of attention to October 1, only because I think there are a couple of politicians in Washington, D.C. that like to be on the headlines, so we'll give them their due time. And then think about what does it mean on the day after October 1st until the end of the year, this year, and think through where investments make sense and what I'm planning to do. Hint, hint, T-bill and chill. And the last part is, if I were Chairman Powell, what would I say on January 2nd, 2024? And there is a message there as well for you. All right. Well, we are here. This is now 99% chance of a shutdown on October 1st. It does not look good. We can pretend there is more time, but here's the reality. Even if everybody came together and tried to pass the bill that is one of the most stringent, cuts to spending, even though everybody agreed to a different bill 6 months ago. Now we are saying, well, that's not really the one I really meant to agree to. The one I really meant to agree to is this other one, which has all kinds of cuts and it doesn't have any Ukraine funding. And bottom line is the one that is being brought to the floor, which isn't even being voted on. Even if it is voted on, it will die in the Senate. So the odds of a shutdown on October 1st are very, very, very high. So we talked about the proverbial tunnel and we thought, hey, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Turns out it is a subway and there is a train coming. Having said that, politicians are very, very talented. They will still survive and there will be a shutdown on October 1st. And you and I and people who are retiring will be left to hold the bag. So let's make sure we're all smart. December 31st is the real deadline for real fear, and we'll talk about why that is. Now, what do we do between now and December 31st? Let's talk about October 1st. That is the day of the shutdown. And I want you to hold your breath for this because everything you know will change on that date. When the shutdown happens, a major event will happen exactly 1 minute after the market opens. And this is the moment we've been waiting for, and it's a head fake. And if I wanted to get more clicks and if I wanted to somehow become more popular at the expense of public panic, we would all hype October 1st as the real big thing. But the reality is October 1st is going to be another day. But here are a few things you can do different. As you saw in the news, there is actually a very interesting article on AP News that says, hey, you don't really need to jump up and down and make rash decisions. The market will tell you what to do. If the market crashes by 20%, that's interesting. If the market goes up and down by 0.5% and 1%, just wait. Let the market tell you what to do, and that is what I intend to do. It's October 1st and October 2nd are days like any other to me. And when I look at my 3-month plan, I sit here and first try to understand, what does a government shutdown really do? Number one, it doesn't touch the really vital parts of society because politicians will get hurt if you touch Medicare, Medicaid, Postal Service. There is a very good article by a nonpartisan group that is on ABC News called What Happens If the Government Shuts Down? It's a very good read. Consider reading it. But here is the simple summary. many government employees would be told to report to work without pay. There are certain people who do things such as monitoring orbiting spacecraft, people who work on the power grid, the prisons, airport security. It's not like you're going to say, well, we're not getting paid, so we're going to ask the TSA to not check people's bags. That would be awful. You're not going to say we're not going to feed the prisoners or even monitor their security. So a lot of federal workers are going to be asked to come work even though they're not getting paid. They will get paid later when the shutdown is over. In the meanwhile, you know, the hourly workers, such as janitors and security guards, will also be told, well, we can't pay you, see if you want to work. Yeah, that's not happening. National parks will close if you don't pay them. They're not going to work. Eventually, some of the private companies will make concessions and pay the security guards, even though they did not work or take a hit to their bottom line. How terrible. In the meanwhile, the lawmakers on Capitol Hill get paid a really cool $174,000 a year. The irony in this is not getting lost. If you read the article on abcnews.go.com, the expression that is made or the analogy that is made is like burning your own house down. What does this achieve? It achieves nothing. So trying to make a stand and by shutting down the government gets us nowhere, and I hope we can get out of it. I'm not here to solve that crisis. I don't know how to. Having said that, I'm here to control my own reactions and my own strategy, and here's what I intend to do. I'm going to only look at objective data. What is happening to the market? What is happening to my investment choices? News and sensationalism, and this is going to change everything. I just don't react to that. In my opinion, where there is chaos, there is opportunity, and that is what I'm going to focus on. I am for now going to reinvest every single dollar of my maturing T-bills right back into 3-month T-bills, which pay pretty well. 6 months paid the highest. If there is an equity that matches my screeners, I may put up to 15% of the maturing capital into equities, except the bulk of it is going to go right back into T-bills. T-bill and chill is the theme. Speaking of my equity filter, this one I call no debt and new low, meaning companies that have nothing or next to nothing in debt, and they have achieved a new low, new 52-week low. And I sit there and say, interesting, which ones come on the new low? But you can't just go buying everything here willy-nilly. I personally then say, banks are in deep trouble. The financial industry is in deep trouble because they all have treasuries, long-term treasuries on their books that are underwater. So I just sit here and get rid of all the financials, regardless of whether they reached a new low or not. I also get rid of IT companies for the same reason that, in my humble opinion, they are not value plays. And the next thing I do is sit there and say, let me see what the price to earnings ratio is. And this is my opinion. I'm not a qualified person to have this opinion. Who am I? Just a mere researcher. But if you are at a 52-week low and your PE ratio is still 13 and 14, yep, not interested. The next thing I do is look around and say, what is your cash flow? Anybody with $1 cash flow, I get rid of those. Then something catches my eye, but we're going to dive deeper into this. I look at MediFast, and MediFast has a 180% coverage ratio, $0 debt in the books, $13 cash flow, and an 8% dividend, and a P ratio of 6. I sit there and go, what's going on? Let me put that on the side, and I'll come back to that. Then I run a different value equity filter, and I say it doesn't need to be at a 52-week low, but I do want the company to have high cash flow, high dividends, high coverage, and I don't like to pay a lot per dollar of earnings. And when I look at those particular results, once again, I come up with superstars like Signature Bank. That one is defunct. I look at a couple of other financials. Best Buy looks interesting, but it's a discretionary product in a recessionary market, and we'll talk more about what that means to me. You do you. And so I kind of look at this and go, well, hey, I do have a shout out to my favorite egg company, Cal-Maine Foods, and I do own positions here. I have a conflict of interest. You do your own math. They have a double-digit cash flow, very low PE, solid dividends. You do your own homework. And another thing that I note is Pioneer barely has enough money to cover their dividends, so I kind of don't like that. Full disclosure, I own positions in every one of the others on this page. So when I put these up using the filter that I showed you, please note the conflict of interest I have. All right, once again, my eyes go to what's that MediFast thing, and we'll dive into that deeper. The next, I look at food. Why do I like food? I said earlier about a discretionary product in a recessionary market. In a recessionary market, people are unlikely to buy the higher priced vanity product. They are more likely to buy things that they need. And food is very intriguing to me because you're not going to starve because there is a recession. You still will need to buy the basics. And so I set up a filter and I look at this as well, where I say, tell me only food companies that again have a high cash flow and a low price and so on. And I come up with these 5 companies. Shout out again to my egg company over there. And full disclosure, I again have positions in every one of the 4 here, except MediFast, and we'll look at MediFast here in a minute. But food companies tend to have really high dividend coverage ratios for the simple reason that they do not pay a lot of dividends. So when they pay 0.7% or something, they got plenty of money in the bank to pay you more. They choose to keep the cash, which makes them very, very sound in terms of the balance sheet, but you do your math yourself. Having said that, all of these are companies with double-digit cash flows, very little debt, and we'll look at MediFast more in a minute. And speaking of which, here is MediFast's most recent 10Q. It shows that the floor is falling underneath them. Remember, MediFast is at a 12-month low, and their revenues have fallen by 26%. And you sit there and go, oh my goodness, why did their revenue fall by 26%? And you read their 10Q, and the link is here, and you should be able to Google MediFast 10Q, and you should be able to see it. And they have what they call coaches. And these coaches are commissioned, contracted people who go into the market and sell their shakes. And what they have said is not only do we have fewer coaches, even the coaches we have now are making less. And oh, by the way, we thought it would be a good idea in a recession to increase the price of our product. And it begs the question, is your market elastic, price elastic? And so if you increase the price of your product, will consumers buy more or less? And MediFast is finding out very quickly the answer is they are going to buy less. And another interesting company, United Guardian. United Guardian, the world is also falling underneath them. They are at a 52-week low. They don't have too much debt, and I started digging down. Hey, what's happening? United Guardian, just so you know, makes all these lotions and potions. They private label it, give it to companies that sell it to you for $100, and they probably made $1 on that. And you look at their balance sheet, something very interesting is happening. Their cash position improved by almost $5 million, and they sold securities they owned. You looked at it and go, wait, what are they doing again? They are selling securities so they can put cash in the bank. And you say, wait, why did you do that? And then you look at their sales. Their sales are down by 35% last quarter, 40% for the year. If your sales is down, you have fixed costs, you need to generate cash from somewhere. So they are selling their marketable securities and putting it into cash to pay. And then you ask, well, why did their sales drop? And then I look at their cash flow statement. I got to tell you, the most irritating thing to me was looking at their cash flow statement, and here is why. I am very, very mad, just like that lady there. They had fixed income mutual funds, and it cost them 5.5 million to buy these mutual funds that were long-term treasuries, and they dumped them at a $500,000 loss. I have a public service announcement to make. If you know anybody at United Guardian, please ask them to watch YieldNerd. Just kidding. Thought I would throw that in there. Well, so here is where we are. The next 3 months, I'm going to reinvest most of what I have into treasuries, but I do see a very interesting opportunity for Chairman Powell to totally get off the hook. Chairman Powell could get to say, I was this close to a soft landing. I had the whole thing figured out, and the government shutdown is what shut it down. Otherwise, we'd be in a soft landing, and there is a very easy way out here. The real Armageddon is if we do not have a deal by January 1st, in which case there will be a 1% cut from 2020 levels. That will be a disaster, and I hope we don't hit that. The moral of the story, October 1 shutdown is a given. There isn't going to be this huge equity crash on October 2nd. Learn about value investing. Do not blindly follow me or any other filter. Do your homework. Thank you for watching YieldNerd.